My name is Dr. Brian Thatcher, and welcome to Mercy Unbound, a show in a series that aims to provide hope and avenue for healing, and one that will help you better understand the mercy of God. In today's show, I have with me friends Bob and Maureen Digan, and we will discuss the miracle that Maureen had and how it led to the beatification of now Saint Maria Faustina. The couple had been involved in divine mercy for many years. They had known Father Seraphin Mikolenko, the vice postulator for the cause of the beatification. Father is considered by many to be, he and Pope St. John Paul II, the experts on divine mercy. And so it was an interesting relationship there. And we're going to talk about how all this unfolded. We'll even talk about how one goes through the beatification canonization process, and we're going to unpack more about great mercy of God. I want to thank Bob and Maureen today for being with me. They're up in Massachusetts. Bob just stepped out, and welcome Maureen. We'll welcome Bob when he gets back, but it's good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Dr. Brian.
I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know Bob will be right back with us, but
Probably needed attention.
When did you two first meet?
Oh, we met way back in
Actually, in the church hall. Maureen's brother was first assigned as a priest to our parish, to her oldest brother. And I was playing the drums for a drum and bugle corps, and during the winter months, the drill team would practice in the church hall. So all of a sudden, this contingency of about 4 or 5 girls came in through the outside. And I really didn't get a look at Maureen. I didn't know who she was or where she was from, but I zeroed in on her. And of all things, I stopped drumming, and the kid next to me, he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Buddy, I don't understand this, but someday I'm going to marry that girl." He says, "I don't care who you're going to marry, but do you know that you just disrupt the whole process here?"
Now, how old were you two at the time?
I was 12.
I was 14.
Oh, you were young then.
Yeah.
What age did you marry?
I think I was 30.
No, you weren't.
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
How many years have you been married?
Oh, no, sorry. Trying to think back.
I was 26.
27.
27.
No.
Okay. So Maureen, when did your medical problems first begin?
I woke up one morning at 14 and my leg was swollen.
Were you in high school then, or 8th grade, or what?
Just went into high school.
Okay.
And my mother said, "Oh, I think you better stay home and rest your leg." I said, "No, Mom, I'm going to go to school." I probably heard it playing basketball. So I went off to school, and about noontime, my leg was really swollen. And I went into the principal's office, and she said, "Oh, I better call the doctor and your mom." So she called the doctor, who happened to be our family doctor and the school doctor. And he came, he looked at it, and he said, "I'm going to send you home and put you on bed rest." And that's when it started. And he said, "It looks like what we call lymphedema." So he treated it for a couple of months and then sent me to Boston Children's. But we lived in Brookline, which is right on the outskirts of Boston. And they put me on bed rest for 3 months, and it reacted well to bed rest, but not as soon as I got up, the swelling came back. So Boston Children's said, "You have lymphedema, Milroy's disease, which is very rare. Actually, you're the first case we've seen."
Wow.
So they started treating me, and it, like I said, it only reacted to bed rest and penicillin. So they treated me like that for a couple of years, actually. And that's the way my life went. Bed rest, penicillin for a couple of years. It was a hard life for a kid.
Yeah.
But there was nothing else they could do.
But the lymphedema caused Maureen's situation massive swelling of her limbs, of her legs. And they thought it might have been elephantitis, which was ruled out. And she spent over 10 years in and out of hospitals, well over 60 operations in attempts to try to correct it, the situation. And so they stripped all the fascia from the leg. It was down to almost like a pretzel.
Really?
So with my family to see if anyone else had it. But since my family was from Ireland, my parents and my oldest brother, they checked with Ireland to see if anyone had it. And my grandfather had something similar.
Really?
Yeah, but
Wow.
they thought it was probably not the same, but they weren't sure.
What about your uncle?
And they thought maybe my uncle had it, but they weren't sure either.
Hmm.
So they ruled it out that they didn't have the lymphedema, Milroy's. So they think I was the first one. But then I had a couple of years ago, I have a niece that was a nurse at Women in Brigham's, and she had something from her elbow down to her fingertips that was similar. And they think she may have had the same thing.
Wow, that's interesting.
Isn't
Now,
it?
when did things, as they deteriorated, when did the doctors mention to you that you might need an amputation?
Oh, that was after all the operations. And when gangrene set in,
Oh, you
Yeah.
had gangrene set in. Wow.
all the operations.
The
Gangrene.
toes and feet?
Huh?
Was it the toes and feet that got gangrenous or
From the knee down.
knee down?
Yeah.
Now, so what kind of thoughts were going through your head? You're probably in your 20s and
Still only
Late teens.
late teens.
late teens, and they're telling you got to have your leg all the way up to the thigh amputated.
So I got really mad at God. I didn't want God in my life at all. I didn't even want to hear the word God. And I came from a pretty religious family. My parents, like Bob said, were from Ireland. My oldest brother was a priest. He didn't preach at me, but he wasn't real happy with me turning away from God. And my parents tried to help me to pray, get God back into my life, but I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And at Boston Children's, they had a chaplain that came in every day, and he tried, but I didn't want to have anything to do with God in my life.
Now,
There was a lot of broken promises and unfulfilled dreams. Case in point, when I was in the Marines, I got a letter from Maureen. I was over on what they call a med cruise, and that wasn't on the Love Boat. That was on a troop ship. And she invited me to her high school prom, and yet most often she was in the hospital. And so I got the dress blue uniform of the Marines. And when I came home to see Maureen, the doctor walked in the day before and said, "Sorry, Mo, you have an infection. You can't go." So there was another shattered dreams and disappointment.
right.
You know, so
Now, this was obviously quite painful, and you were on probably needed pain medications. Did that become a problem for you as well?
No, the pain medication didn't, but all the disappointments did. So I became very angry with God. Maybe at one point the pain medications became a little problem, but I never really did medications. I didn't have much of a problem with that.
Over the years, what do you think about it? You've had a lot of trials, Maureen and Bob. You're part of it. It's a marriage is a two-way street, and how do you look on those things from years ago now, Maureen? Is it still real tough for you? Are you still angry, or have you come more to accept it, or where are you at with that?
I become more accepted. I have God back in my life now, of course, but it's still difficult when I think back at it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have the opportunity when I give a talk to speak to people who are having difficulties, and I'm able to help some of the people, which is a great benefit, to be able to help somebody who's in the same problem that I was in. It's wonderful to be able to help someone.
Because really, I've been blessed. I've never had a surgery, so I have no idea. I can feel empathy for people, but some people really have a lot of sufferings in their life, and you're one of them. And it's got to, as you said, got to be rewarding to be able to talk to people and kind of give them that word of encouragement that you can get through it.
Oh, it is. It's a great help to be able to help somebody who's going through it, because when you go through it and you don't have anyone to help you, it's really difficult. And unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to help me.
On the DVD, I mentioned a quote there on the jacket that people could read that goes something like this, that what we experience, God has allowed for the encouragement of other people. He allowed us to go through all this. So then we receive his mercy, and that is to be encouragement for others. It was one thing to receive a miracle. People asked you, how did you feel? Well, at the Beatification, we looked out and there were 150,000 people out there. And you look and you say, why us? Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. But how about the rest of the people there?
Yeah.
We do have people that say to me, why you? Why not me? And you get embarrassed then because you don't know what to say to them.
Right. Because they're suffering. And I want to get back, though. We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, because I want to get back to, so you had the amputation. You're obviously in a wheelchair. You can't do a lot of things, or many things that other people can do. You're angry at God. You're trying to work through all that. At what point did the other leg start to have problems?
Excuse me if I could jump in on this. First, Maureen had an amputation just above the knee. And she did something that the doctors were not very happy with her. She had a tube in her stump, and she went off skiing.
That sounds like somebody up in the Northeast with all the snow would do. We don't do that in Florida.
Yeah, she's a tough, stubborn gal. So go ahead.
So then shortly after that time, the disease came in the other leg, the left leg. I wasn't free with it in the left leg for very long.
Really? I wasn't aware of that.
So it was really difficult,
So now the anger is probably building up again, I would imagine. And you're wondering, Lord, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah. Then I got really angry with God, and I threw him out of my life. It's like, okay, God, what else are you going to do to me?
Yeah. How much more of this can I take?
Right.
Exactly. Where are you? Are you really there?
Yeah.
They want me to pray to you. Why should I pray to you when you keep giving me all these difficulties and hardships in my life? If I pray to you, what else will you give me? So I found it difficult to pray to God.
That's like St. Therese of Avila when she got knocked off the horse and fell in the mud. And she said to our Lord, if this is the way you treat your friends, no wonder why you have so few.
Exactly. So we're at a point in time, your good leg is going the wrong direction, going south. You're having all kinds of problems again. You don't know where this is going, but it ain't looking good. And then, Bob, what did you do at this point? Or tell us a story about talking to Father Seraphim and heading off to Poland.
Well, every moment I could, which was many times, I would pray as best I could, especially if I was driving to or from work. I would be praying here. That would be my little sanctuary. So anyhow, I received a flyer in the mail about Divine Mercy, and then the Marian Helpers Bulletin had showed up. We never applied for it, but somebody must have sent it to us. And so I said, that's it. This is where God is calling us to. And at a point, I felt very strong inspiration, though God was calling us to something, but I felt imprisoned in our own house. So I wrote to my spiritual director, the late Father Jim Flanagan, founder of the Salt, the Ladies Society of the Most Holy Trinity. And I asked him, I said, well, what do you make of this? You know, and he wrote back to me, he says, I suggest you read the book of Job. I said, you got to be kidding. I have enough of my problems. I don't need this guy's too. So anyhow, I caught the point and all that. And then one evening, to make a long story short, I received this divine inspiration that what the world needs now, the church and the world, the divine mercy. And through the revelations of Saint Faustina, the only way it's going to be promulgated throughout the world is to have her recognize that her message from our Lord was authentic. And so we would take the risk of going to Poland to the tomb of Sister Faustina at the time. And years ago, back in 1976, the bicentennial year, we went to Lourdes, France to receive a healing for my wife and son, our son. And unfortunately, Bobby came home in worse condition than when we brought him there, you know, which was very strange. But the point is that was not the time or the place. So this was not wishful thinking. It was not hopeful thinking or anything like that to go to Poland. But this was a divine inspiration that we had tested. And we went up to see Father Seraphin, and I told him, we want you to come with us. He said, okay, why? I said, to be a witness to the miracles. Notice the plural, to the miracles. So he said, well, the first miracle will come right now because I'm going to go ask the provincial if I could go. Came back from there. And so he came back all excited. His eye beamed like a, bright lights. And he says, I don't believe it. He says, it must be true. I said, well, let's find out. So off we went against a lot of opposition. Plane got canceled at the last minute, just when we were going to board it. And so we finally got to Poland. You know, it's a long story. And there at the tomb, then as we were praying, oh, by the way, let me back up for a minute. Before we left, Maureen was still in the hospital, very discouraged. She was about to lose her other leg. Her doctor gave her a courtesy discharge so she could go to Poland. He thought, you know, what's there, the hot springs or something? Father Seraphin invited myself and some members of the prayer team to go in the side chapel, is now the Faustina chapel up at the shrine, and begin a special novena to pray that all went well. And this was day one. As we were praying, we heard a young woman's voice back of the church. So we looked out, we didn't see anyone. So we continued praying. And again, we heard the voice. I looked out again and I said, that's it. So I went down through the shrine, looking at through all the pews, looked outside, looked through the confessional, the choir loft, couldn't find anyone. So we thought she must have left. Too bad, she could have joined us. So we began praying, and I went to look out. Father Seraphin pulls me back in. He says, leave her alone. She's praying with us. So I did not mean to be disrespectful, but I was really befuddled. You know, we hear this voice, but you don't see anyone. So I says, okay, smart Alec, you know who she is. Where is she hiding? And he smiled. He says, you can't see her. That's Sister Faustina. I figured, well, okay, all right, I'll trust you. So then when we got to Poland, and the night that the miracles took place, Maureen offered this very beautiful prayer.
If you're going to do something, then do it now. I was angry.
Yeah,
Let me just interject something here, because to put this in perspective, you've lost one leg, you're about ready to lose another, you're in a bad way, you're angry at God, your husband says, come on, we're going to Poland, you're going to be the cause of a miracle for the beatification of Faustina. The average person in America would probably look at that and say, you know, well, first of all, I admire your faith, Bob, because I honestly don't know if I could do that. That was such a leap of faith and conviction that had to have been in your heart, because to fly your wife, who's in such a bad shape, halfway around the world, that's an incredible, that to me shows incredible faith.
Well, there was a lot of obstacles. Yeah. Well, actually, Maureen thought I flipped out and became a religious fanatic.
Yeah, I mean, many people would. Miracles don't happen. They're made up. They're coincidental. Who believes in God anymore?
Right. Exactly.
So you're at the tomb and you're like, go ahead, Maria Faustina, do your stuff.
Yeah. It's a job description, you know. People say,
I didn't believe she was going to do anything.
Yeah.
I thought it was all crazy.
Did you feel anything? Did you hear anything? Did you?
Well, when it happened, when I said to her, okay, if you're going to do something, then do it now. I was being flipped to her.
Yeah.
I felt my leg like get a little bit warm, maybe. And I felt my shoe get a little bit big, but I thought it was maybe my imagination.
No, loose.
Loose. My
Okay,
shoe got
right.
loose. And when we went back to the room and I looked at my leg, I thought, oh, wow, I must be having a nervous breakdown because my leg looked normal, like I haven't seen it in years. Look. So I thought, well, I'm just going to get back into bed. I'm not going to tell Father Seraphin. He'll think, oh, God, she's going crazy. I got back into bed. And the next morning, when we woke up and I looked at it, I thought, uh-oh, I am having a nervous breakdown. It looks normal. So I said to Bob, come here, hon, sit down next to me. I have to show you something. Now, don't think I'm going crazy. Just look. So when I showed it to him, he went, uh-huh. And I went, yeah, uh-huh, what? And he said, that's what we came here for. I said, Bob, look at my leg and tell me about it. He said, yeah, your leg is back to normal. That's what we came here for, remember? And I said, Bob, can you tell me what's happened to my leg? He said, through the intercession of Faustina, your leg has been healed. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Then I said, get dressed, come on, because Father Seraphin's nervous, he's going to say mass. We better get out there.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, now I have to tell him. I don't want to tell him this. He's really going to think I'm a wacko. So we got dressed, went out to mass, and I said to him, Father Seraphin, I have to tell you something. And I was a nervous wreck to show my leg to him. So I showed him my leg and he said, oh, let's say mass. And I'm going, let's say mass. He didn't say a thing about the leg.
That was kind of father, wasn't it? That was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So I said to him after mass, did you notice my leg is normal? He said, mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh gosh. Father Seraphin, the leg is normal. No, nothing came out of him, which is him, typical. So
All business.
yeah, all business. So the leg was normal and nothing big was made out of it. And like, I'm still a nervous wreck. And
Well, Father Seraphin, then when we left Poland, we went to Rome because he was trying to get the first diaries out that were printed in Polish in Rome. And Maureen was in and off of buses on crutches. So there was a point there that,
and I couldn't even walk before. It was like,
yeah.
Bob, can you kind of just walk through briefly what's the process, for a person to become a saint? We're talking here about the beatification and the canonization, but walk us through what's needed and how Maureen fit into all this.
Years ago, the requirement was actually 3 miracles, 2 for the beatification and 1 for the canonization. And they changed it. They wanted 1 for the beatification and 1 for the canonization. The process is very intense, very involved, very costly. A cause is introduced to the local bishop where the miracle had taken place. And in our instance, it was in Poland. So they called in Karol Mahacki, who replaced John Paul II as Archbishop of Krakow. After an intense investigation, the Vatican says, we wait 5 years to see if there's any change. So then they contacted the Archdiocese of Boston, where we're originally from, if you can't detect the accent there. And after, I think, $50 worth of postage, they sent the report back to Krakow and Krakow to Rome. And then Maureen had to see 5 independent doctors, and only 1 was Catholic. and so they wrote in their reports. In fact, at one point, we had to get then Cardinal Law to contact one of the doctors to give his report. And so that's how that went before Rome. And then a panel of doctors examined all the reports, and then it's handed on to the cardinals, and then they decide, and then it's handed on to the Pope to get his signature to sign off. And then they set a date for the beatification. We found out that Rome accepted Maureen's miracle on the date of Father Seraphin's mother's passing. Interesting. And so the voting was unanimous. One doctor who had any objections that this was extraordinary.
That's pretty amazing, because I knew the canonization miracle very well, and that was tough, and they usually are very difficult. So it's kind of a test to the miraculous recovery that Maureen had. When exactly was the beatification? What year?
1993 on April 18th, which was Mercy Sunday. It was a beautiful sunny day.
And obviously Father Seraphim was there. You two were there. Were there other Marian priests, probably a whole slew of them there, or?
Father Richard was there, Richard Drabeck, the former provincial. Can't think of anyone else offhand.
Well, again, looking out, you mentioned earlier, you looked out and you see thousands and thousands of people out there. That had to have been humbling in a way.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. In fact, one of Sister Faustina's, now Saint Faustina, one of her blood sisters was there. And Father Seraphim told us later that she was very ill in a nursing home, and she prayed to her. She said, "Helena, I'm your sister. Make me well so I can attend this thing." And she was there to witness it, and she shortly passed away after that.
Wow, that's neat. That's neat. And of course, then years later, the miracle of the priest with his heart healed led to the canonization. And you two have been a witness to the mercy of God. And Bob, you're a deacon in the church. And as fate would have it, I watched the funeral mass of Father Mikolenko, and you were on the altar. That had to have been a special moment as well, and just how God worked all this out in your lives.
Oh, yes. In fact, when I was doing the prayers of the faithful, at one point, I mentioned about prayers for the family, and I just had a flash of all the past experiences, that we had visiting others, sharing the mass with Father Seraphim, and I choked up, and I looked at his remaining sister who's alive.
Wow. I want to make sure I mentioned you two have put together a DVD called In the Name of Miracles, and it's available through the Marian Helpers in the States, Marian.org or thedivinemercy.org. I don't know the code, and you don't have one handy right with you, but I will put that in the report when we summarize the video that'll be on the web, and people can get a hold of that if they want to pursue this further and see the DVD on the miracle. But I guess in closing, Bob and Maureen, maybe each of you take a minute or two and just any words for the audience on faith. Faith is kind of a not popular word, God and all this, and on the mercy of God. What are your thoughts?
My thought is never give up. Never give up on God. No matter how down you are, no matter how hurt you are. I was really hurt and down. And through all that, when I finally found my faith, I realized God was always with me. No matter how hurt I was, no matter how I felt God was not with me, he really was. He was always with me. He was always holding on to me nice and tightly. Even when I felt he wasn't, he really was. He was always with me. God never abandons us.
Yeah, you didn't give up on God. You were busy doing what you should have been doing, hurting. You were in pain. I just learned at the beginning of April, I think it was April 8th, a movie was shown by EWTN in Europe, in Ireland and the UK. And Ireland is suffering tremendously from the lockdown. I understand that masses can't even be celebrated. It's a terrible situation where people are now beginning to become angry. So hopefully that they saw this. We try to put the words out to some relatives over there and to spread the word, to give people hope that regardless of what we go through, as it says, to trust in God's mercy no matter what. There's a beautiful song in Poland that we learned. It goes something like this. Though our plans and our hopes, catch this, over and over seem destroyed, only God's mercy never disappoints us. Jesus, I trust in you, even from my early youth. I trust in you, even though the whole world would doubt. I think that's a tremendous message.
That's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. And, it's just so good to see you. I haven't seen you for several years. And, we're all getting older, and we're making the last lap around. And,
Right.
we just keep the faith and continue to trust in the Lord. And the purpose of this series, as we mentioned at the beginning, is to provide hope and an avenue for healing and to people to understand the mercy of God. So I know you will, as I am, until our last breath. We'll keep pushing and promoting the love of God and the mercy of God. And I just want to thank you so much for being with us on Mercy Unbound. And I hope to see you soon. And for all the listeners, just know that you can get their DVD, In the Name of Miracles, through the Marian Helpers Association. We'll have it in our blog summary. And keep the faith. Never give up. God bless.
Brian, one last thing. A few years ago, we had to speak. I think it was down in Tampa, in Florida. It was the only time that two recipients of, canonization of a candidate were there together. We were with Father Martel. And I saw this as God's plan, that here he allowed a woman who has handicaps, her son was handicapped, and here we have a priest whose heart must be broken from all that's going on. And yet he healed the two of them so as to be an inspiration for others.
And, I'll just add one point to that. People think, it's many times the person had such deep faith, but it also played as a husband and wife. It was the spouse's deep faith. And Maureen, we're going to Poland. And so never doubt the mercy of God. And God bless you. And I hope to see you soon next time I'm up in Massachusetts. So
Good.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
tell you
you,
the rest of the
Doctor.
story then.
Thank you, Doctor.
Very much.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for the video portion. The podcast can be heard at anchor.fm/Dr. Brian, Bryan Thatcher, Thatcher, and on all the major podcast forums. I would love to speak at your church or conference, and please consider supporting our efforts to spread the truth to a hurting world. Thank you again. And for more information, go to the website at drbrianthatcher.com.